Hey everybody, this is Kennedy Hawk from the MCM team. We're going to start our Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. box coverage by going through each villain and doing a villain primer on them in the old style we used to do for the core set villains. So this is our Black Widow villain primer. Be prepared, I'm going to get my secret agent sunglasses on. I cannot see my computer at all, but my daughter picked them out, so I have to at least wear them for the video so she can watch it on YouTube. But welcome to our S.H.I.E.L.D. guides. We've got a couple of these out for some ancient villains, and now we're going through them for the latest box. So let's dive right in and learn all about Black Widow. So what is this villain guide going to cover, or this primer? We're going to introduce the video. That's what I'm doing right now, in case you weren't listening. We're going to go over Black Widow and talk about her main hook, some tips and tricks to playing against Black Widow, and go through a hero tier list or sort of strategy to figure out how to deal with this villain and what heroes might be good. We'll go through each of the four aspects and talk about some of the cards that might be helpful against Black Widow, and then overview her boost icons, her encounter card types, modular sets, and wrap it up with my patented archery scale. So, wow, same slide twice. Okay, so Black Widow's villain card. Black Widow is a 3-stage villain. You use stage 1 and 2 in standard mode, but stage 2 and 3 in expert mode. Pretty typical. With the spy trait, she has 2 scheme and 1 attack in her first stage, and then goes and becomes a 2 scheme, 2 attack villain, and eventually a 3 scheme, 2 attack villain. So we're kind of adding 1 to attack, and then 1 to scheme in expert mode. So the jump from stage 1 to stage 2 is different between standard and expert. She gets stronger in attack in standard and stronger in thwarting or scheming in expert mode. The forced interrupt is pretty much the same on all 3 of these. So we have a forced interrupt when a character you control attacks Black Widow. Remove 1 threat from the main scheme, ignoring any crisis icons in play. Arrow, so that means that is a cost. Discard the top card of the encounter deck and resolve each preparation ability on that card. We have the exact same forced interrupt on the other 2 cards. When a character you control attacks Black Widow, remove 1 threat from the main scheme. No reminder text saying to ignore crisis icons, but we still will. And then we discard the top card of the encounter deck and resolve each preparation ability on that card. The only difference is when level 2 of Black Widow is revealed, we're going to place 2 per player threat on the main scheme. When level 3 is revealed, we're going to place 3 per player threat onto the main scheme. So that means in total in expert, you're going to see 5 per player threat coming out just from the revealing of the villain. Whereas in standard, you're only going to get 2 per player and only when you progress her to her second stage. Alright, so what is her main scheme? It is the Widow's Web. No flavor text on the 1A side, but we are going to search the encounter deck for a minion and put it into play engaged with you. Each player is going to do that, and there are 10 minions with the recommended modular sets in Black Widow's deck, so you should have a lot of choices to pick from. She's going to use her own encounter set, a standard encounter set, and then 2 modular encounter sets. So a pretty thick encounter deck. On the 1B side, Widow's Web has 10 threat per player as its threshold. It starts at 2 threat per player, and it goes up X per player per round, where X is Black Widow's stage number. If this stage is completed, the players lose the game. So basically in standard, it's going to start up going 1 per player. It's eventually going to be going up 2 per player. In expert, it's going to be going up 2 and 3, which is a large number to deal with. So very similar to Rhino, kind of a low 1-stage scheme, which can be very tricky for things like advance and other scheme activations she might have. So what is her main hook? It's a payback gotcha mechanic. So when we attack Black Widow with any character we control, ally, our hero, events that we play, whatever, we're going to be discarding the top card of the encounter deck and resolving a preparation ability. So in the 19 cards in Black Widow's encounter deck, not including her modular sets and the standard sets, all of them except for 2 have a preparation ability on them. So all of these cards are going to sort of be dual use or preparations where she's preparing for this attack you confront her with. So for here example, Widow's Bite is you are stunned, take 1 damage when revealed from the encounter deck. As a preparation, after the attack, you're going to stun the attacking character. So your attack will go off, but you'll be stunned. Covert Ops is going to place a threat on each scheme. Dance of Death is going to deal a damage to each character. Really horrible ways to have your entire board wiped. And remember, this happens as you're declaring your attack. When a character you control attacks, it's an interrupt. So you might even have an ally die as they're going into combat, which can be really brutal. There's also a lot of threat management on here. There's a lot of scheming and high scheme value on the villains, so we have to be really careful because it is a one-stage main scheme. And it's kind of minion swarmy. It doesn't have a lot of things that trigger and bring out minions, but there's just a ton of minions into the deck. So those are the main hooks we're looking at, this preparation foiling of Black Widow's hero kit, which I really, really love. So let's go on and look at some of the key cards, or cards that I think are key cards in Black Widow's deck. And they are her preparations. Here are some of her 2 of preparations. We have Covert Ops. These are key cards because you're going to see them as preparations and you're going to see them as encounter cards. So some of these are extra activation cards and they are brutal. Like, let's look at Covert Ops. When revealed, you are confused and Black Widow schemes. Doesn't matter if you're in hero form, Black Widow's scheming. So there are 4 advances in Black Widow's deck, forcing her to scheme, and 2 of them confuse you as well, making it even harder to recover from that scheme. This is a game-ending card so many times for me in solo. You really have to keep the threat low, because if this is your encounter card, if Black Widow is a 2 and she gets a 2 boost icon, you're placing 4 threat on the main scheme, plus the probably 1 to 2 to 3 per phase. So in solo, if you're in the second stage of Expert, that's 7 threat on the main scheme, and you're confused, so good luck dealing with it, right? You can remove some of that threat by attacking, but you get close to that threat threshold often. Okay, we're going to turn off this filter. It is going crazy. It won't let me do that while we're recording. Well, good luck watching my headphones clip off. All right, we've got Widow's Bite. When revealed, you are stunned. Take 1 damage. It's a preparation as well. After this attack, stun the attacking character. So we've got some stun control in her deck. This card, Dance of Death, another foil card from Black Widow's kit. When revealed, deal 1 damage to a character you control, deal 2 damage to a second character, and 3 to a third character. That's a board wipe for a lot of people that have allies out there. So hopefully you've jumped with your ally already. Otherwise, you're going to be incentivized to hit your allies with 1 and 2 and yourself with 3 to keep them around. And as a preparation, it just deals 1 damage to each character you control. Brutal. Acrobatics, if you're in alter ego form, change to hero form. Black Widow attacks you. Give her an additional boost card for this attack. So that is a huge attack, and one you can't hide from in alter ego form. So if you flip down to alter ego and you think you're safe and you can recover next turn, joke's on you, acrobatics to your face. The key here is the preparation ability. As a preparation, acrobatics, another 2 of card, is prevent all damage from this attack. In expert mode, deal that much damage to the attacking character. Brutal. Horrible. You need to know where this card is. If there's 2 in the discard pile, you can feel pretty safe. Otherwise, your attack might just whiff and smack you back in the face. And we've even got attachments, not just treacheries, that have preparation. So here's Black Widow's gauntlets. They attach to Black Widow and give her retaliate 1. Really painful for allies. Hero response. After a character you control attacks Black Widow, if no preparation ability was resolved, discard this card. So we'll talk about ways you can get around that. But as a preparation, this attaches to Black Widow immediately. Just bonkers cards that are going off constantly and seem to be always coming up because you have double the chance to see them as a preparation and as a treachery card. If you're attacking a bunch of times a turn, maybe more than double of the chance to see them. Okay, let's look through some of the other key aspects of her deck. So she's got a threat pressure package. We've got 2 copies of Covert Ops that we already went over. We've also got Destroy Evidence. It is a 2 threat, 2 per player hinder side scheme. So in 4-player, that's going to have 10 threat on it. Each other encounter card gains Insight 1 with a crisis icon. So you can still remove damage by attacking Black Widow, but that's a lot of extra threat with all of that insight. We also have, that's a 1 of. We have a 1 of Night Vision Goggles, which attach to Black Widow. It's an item attachment. Each encounter card without a printed preparation gains preparation, prevent all damage from this attack, and discard Night Vision Goggles. This attaches on preparation, has 3 boost icons, all the bad things. So while there's only 4 cards in her deck, plus the 2 advances, like 6 cards that are really like threat pressure, we'll call them, just in general, she's a very threat or scheme heavy scenario. Black Widow starts by scheming for 2. In expert mode, she can be scheming for 3 at times without a boost card. That's a lot of threat. It makes it really hard to flip down if you're not confusing Black Widow. On top of that, the Widow's Web itself, right? If you're playing an expert and you progress to the second stage of Black Widow or Black Widow 3, you're going to be putting 12 threat out in 4-player per round just at the start of the round. That's a lot. Putting out a ton of threat. It reminds me a lot of Nebula's scenario, but maybe not as crazy, where you're putting out these multiples per player threats per round. The damage package is a little more explainable. There's a ton of cards that deal damage in Black Widow's kit. We have Acrobatics, which we already went over, which is an extra attack activation. There's 2 copies of that. It gets you even if you're an alter ego. It does let you defend. Kind of nice, but kind of horrible still. We have Widow's Bite that's going to deal damage and stun us. We have Dance of Death, that board wipe, and the Retaliate from Black Widow's Gauntlets that also give +1 attack. I didn't mention that earlier. But we've also got other stuff. We have these Aim Commandos, which are a 1 scheme, 2 attack minion. There's 2 of them. They have 3 health. They're going to get rolled over, but they have Quick Strike. And a preparation that puts them into play engaged with you. So taking an attack during the hero phase, not something you're always prepared for. So maybe your ally attacks and you've already used your hero attack. Guess what? Aim Commando comes out and takes 2 damage to the face. So you have to be really careful thinking about those preparations. We also have a 1 of side scheme automated defenses. It is a 3 threat plus hinder 1 per player, so 4 to 7 threat. Each encounter card without a printed preparation ability gains deal 1 damage to the attacking character with an amplify icon. Just brutal cards. All right, let's keep moving on here and look at the extra activation cards. This is the thing that I think is a key for Black Widow. So we talked about the 2 of Covert Ops and the 2 of Acrobatics. Those are Black Widow's extra scheme activation cards and extra attack activation cards. Villains often have those extra attack cards, right? I think Rhino had something. I can't remember their names now. Oh my gosh. All the villains sort of have those extra activation cards, and we always have the ones from the standard set. But Black Widow has 4, right? So she has 2 copies of Covert Ops, 2 copies of Acrobatics, 2 copies of Advance, 2 copies of Assault, and a copy of Gang Up. That's 9 extra activation cards in her deck. And we'll talk about what percentage of that deck it is later, but it's not insubstantial. So you should prepare and assume that on any given turn, Black Widow might be doing an extra activation. And that's a really hard mindset to get through. They're a lot less common in some of the other scenarios. But having 4 of them here and not getting to decide if they're a scheme or an attack by being in a certain form makes them a little bit extra brutal for the Black Widow. So some general tips and tricks to success against the Black Widow. You want to keep the threat level real low. Like low. So Black Widow's ability only triggers if you can remove a threat from the main scheme. That is a part of the cost. So if we can keep the main scheme clean, kind of like keeping the streets clean against Sandman, then we don't even care about her preparations because we attack her, we can't remove a threat, shucks, she wasn't prepared, she doesn't get a preparation off. We're having half the number of bad things happen to us as we do in a normal game. So you're going to want to keep that threat not just low, but empty when you're performing attacks. That means that in multiplayer, off-action thwarting or off-turn thwarting is super important, right? Event thwarting that isn't just your basic thwart lets you get in there and remove all the threats so that everybody can get all their attacks in. This also prepares us for those Black Widow stage transitions, right? Going from 1 to 2, she places 2 threat per player on the scheme. So if you're playing in solo and you had it at 8 scheme already and you pop her to stage 2, all of a sudden she just threats out by revealing her next form. Or in Expert, goes from 2 to 3, again, bam, just threats out by revealing her form. Pretty horrible. And don't sleep on that 3 threat per player in Expert mode Black Widow 3. It is pretty gross, right? Putting 3 threat on at the main scheme, if you get an acceleration token out there, it can just get bananas fast. Alright, use non-attack damage or large attacks, right? If she is going to have the chance to cancel her attacks or get a preparation for every attack, well then instead of 10 1 damage attacks, what if I did 1 10 damage attack? That's going to mean I only have the chance of seeing 1 preparation instead of 10 little ones that, death by 1,000 paper cuts. The ability only triggers when you perform an attack, so let's just attack less, right? We could use things like She-Hulk's Flip, we could use Tack Team, and we could use all various sorts of non-attack damage to sort of whittle away at Black Widow and then only perform attacks at those critical turns when it's the most important. We could use large attacks, but be careful with that. We did talk about I think it was Grappling Hook. I can't remember the name of the card now, but there's a preparation that blocks all damage. So we have to be a little bit careful doing large attacks, because if we do a 10 damage attack and it whiffs, that's probably our whole turn wasted. So you kind of got to keep track of where those preparation cards are. Prepare for extra activations, right? Be prepared, as Scar would tell us. In the encounter deck, there are 36 cards with the recommended modular sets. So that's including the 2 modular sets that it recommends in the back of Scheme 1A. There's 32 to 35 once you resolve the setup ability, because you're all going to go search for a minion. 9 of those cards that are left in that 32 to 35 are an extra activation from the Widow. So that means a quarter of the deck over a quarter of the deck on that first pass is extra activation cards. So in a 4-player game, you're drawing 4 cards per turn, and about 1 in every 4 cards is an extra activation, so you should expect one every round. Math works out a little bit differently in 2-player, 3-player, and solo, but you should still be anticipating them more than previous villains that we've had to play against. It's a sneaky minion-heavy scenario. You might think that this is an espionage, thwarty, schemy scenario, but there's 10 minions in this encounter deck as well. That's more than there were extra activations. So again, in 4-player, we should expect a minion to be dumping out every turn. Some of them come out as preparations. I think 4 of them come out as preparations. So these minions, they will be annoying. So be prepared for them. And then finally, know your preparations. There's a ton of cards that are preparations. So we've got the treacheries that we talked about in Black Widow's Gauntlets. There's 4 minions in her encounter deck. 2 of them are 1/1 5 health guard minions that put the minion into play and change the target of the attack to them. There's also 2 copies of Aim Commando, a 1 scheme 2 attack 3 health quick strike minion that will attack you when it comes into play. And then we've got some things like Grappling Hook and Stun Net that are just other preparations that can be obnoxious for you. And it looks like the Prevent All Damage preparation was Attack Acrobatics, not Grappling Hook like I had assumed. But yeah, know your preparations. There's 17 of them. That's roughly half the deck of 36 cards, slightly less than half the deck. But that means about half the attacks you perform are going to get hit by a preparation. So just don't count on not seeing a preparation when you hit Black Widow, I guess is what I'm saying. Alright, so for hero solutions, what we used to do in these videos is I would do a tier list and say, this hero is really strong against this villain, this hero might be a little bit weak because of this. There's too many heroes for that to be sustainable in these new villain primers. So what I'm going to do instead is give you some attributes of heroes that I think are really important to taking care of Black Widow, that can help us with all those general tips and tricks, and some things that might make it harder for heroes. And then we'll go through a set of 9 heroes and say, hey, is this an easy mode hero, a B tier hero, or a hard mode hero? Alright, so easy mode, we want heroes that have naturally 2+ thwart, 2 on their hero card, maybe 3 in kit. If they can get to 3 base thwart, that means you can clear the scheme, perform a bunch of attack events. Clear the scheme, perform a bunch of attack events, and ignore those preparations. Because of that, we also want tempo and multitasking heroes. Not multitasking the Justice card, but someone who can thwart and chip away damage every turn, right? Maintain that main scheme, but also pew 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 at Black Widow so that you're constantly clearing the scheme, but still being able to perform some attacks and get some damage done. That can be done in a leadership style deck where you have a bunch of allies and you let the hero focus on clearing the scheme and the allies focus on performing attacks. It can be done in all sorts of ways, but you want some sort of tempo build to your deck. Our B tier heroes, ones that are going to have success, right? She still is susceptible to stun and confuse. It doesn't necessarily turn off her ability to get preparations. So yes, stunning and confusing is nice. It is going to help you. It's not going to help you like clearing the main scheme and getting to ignore all those preparations. And minion handlers, there's going to be a ton of minions in this deck, so just characters that are good at handling minions are going to be a little bit better. In general, those are good at multitasking as well. They might be good at tempo, like clear the board and attack, not just focus on clear the board and build. And in general, hard mode villains are going to be people with a printed 1 thwart or weak thwart in kit. Characters that have very defensive builds, like Groot, or very attack-heavy builds with lacking thwart, like Hawkeye. Heroes requiring a lot of setup can also be pretty painful, right? So it's going to be hard to sit in alter ego form for multiple turns as Iron Man, building up tech upgrades, just like with Rhino. 1 advance and your day is kind of over. And Glass Ganons can have a lot of trouble, right? Because there's a lot of extra damage cards. I think we went through 10 or 11 in Black Widow's kit alone. So you are going to be having to be a survivable character. So let's look at cases 1, 2, and 3. I put 3 Guardians heroes on the page here. We have Gamora, Rocket, and Groot. In this case, I would say Gamora is an easy mode character. She has our 2 attack. She inherently wants to thwart and then deal damage. Has non-attack damage printed on her hero card. All the things we want to deal with Black Widow built directly into Gamora's kit. Rocket, again, probably a B edging on easy mode hero because he has a lot of card draw. Has the 2 thwart, so maybe I should have put him in easy mode. I mainly put him in B tier because he likes to attack a lot of minions and defeat things so that he can deal excess damage. You could probably craft him into an easy mode. And when I say someone's a hard mode character, by no means does that mean here Groot, for example, is unable to defeat Black Widow. It's just going to be a more challenging game. You're going to have to think about your deck building and your decisions a little bit more, which for some of us, that's what I thrive on. That's probably why I like some of the lower tier power heroes, because they really make my decisions and my gameplay more impactful to myself. So here I have Gamora classified as easy mode, Rocket probably as B tier, and Groot as hard mode. Let's look at some shield relevant heroes, right? We have Captain America, Black Widow, Natasha, and Hawkeye. So here I would classify Captain America and Black Widow both as easy mode, right? Captain America obviously has a ready built onto his hero card, so he can thwart for 2 and then immediately punch for 2. He has that built in, like, clear the scheme, punch the villain into his form. We also have Black Widow, who can do something very similar. She can thwart for 2 and then use her attack abilities. She can thwart for 2 and then trigger preparations, although the preparations are, again, not attack damage, which we love against this character. And then I have Hawkeye down here as a hard mode character, right? 1 thwart, 2 thwart events in kit, but they're not super consistent. Just going to have a real hard time keeping the threat clear. So if you're going to play a hard mode character, you might want to play them in Justice, so you get extra thwarting abilities to keep that threat empty. All right, cases 7, 8, and 9. I have Maria Hill, Nick Fury, and Spider-Man, and these are probably going to be like the 9 heroes we use to evaluate the villains in the Shield wave, although I might add other heroes in here and there as we go along. So I have both Maria and Nick as easy mode heroes, which is great. They're in the box with Black Widow. She's the first scenario. She should be easy to defeat with the characters in the box. They both have 2 thwart. They're both really good at tempo builds. I think that Maria Hill, in particular, has a lot of non-attack damage built into her kits, right? With building up the shield supports and then using them to provide her damage, if you will. So I think that works really, really well for her. Nick Fury, likewise, can do a lot of thwarting. He can avoid attacks, and you have to be a little bit careful avoiding attacks, because if you allow Black Widow to scheme, and then she draws a covert ops, you're kind of sad as Nick Fury. But at the same time, you've got 2 attack and lots of in-kit thwarting. So I think you're pretty good to go on being able to keep that main scheme clear. Spider-Man, on the other hand, 1 thwart, very conditional thwart card in kit, right? Our Spider Tracer can be placed onto the many minions that are out there, but then you're focusing on the minions instead of the hero, or instead of the villain. So you're kind of like doing this piddling around, hoping to have an opportunity to attack Black Widow, and it can be a little bit difficult. Think about that when you're choosing your hero selection. Think about that when you're building your decks. If you're trying to do this with what I would call one of the harder or hard mode heroes, then maybe think a little bit more about your deck building. Think a little bit more about your decisions. Clean up your play, because it's going to be really important to taking down Black Widow. Let's look through the 4 aspects and talk about some of the aspect solutions. So I picked 3 cards from each of the 4 non-pool aspects to say these cards could be helpful for you when taking on Black Widow. So let's start out with Justice. Clear the area, especially in solo, is super important. But like I said, you want to keep that main scheme empty. So clear the area should always be triggering its card draw. And you can even do this by attacking Black Widow and removing a threat and setting up a clear the area to remove things. So clear the area is a 1-cost event. Hero action thwart, remove 2 threat from a scheme. If this removes the last threat from the scheme, draw 1 card. This is from Rise of the Red Skull. We have Global Logistics, a 0-cost shield tactic event. Action, exhaust 1 shield card you control. Look at the top 4 cards of a player deck or encounter deck, discard any number of those cards, and put the others on top or bottom of the deck in any order. So this can set up like, hey, I have 4 attacks on the board with all my allies. I want to make sure I don't have preparations on top of the deck. Really, really powerful against Black Widow. And then Stealth Strike, hero action attack, deal 4 damage to an enemy. If that enemy is defeated by this attack, remove 2 threat from a scheme. So this helps you clear those minions, clear the scheme, and set up your hero to do a basic attack against the villain. That is from Gambit and Black Widow hero packs. Next, we're going to move on to Aggression. So we have Relentless Assault from the core set and Galaxy's Most Wanted. It is a hero action 2-cost attack. Deal 5 damage to a minion if you paid for this card using a physical resource. This tech gains overkill, so that's going to be, again, you're not performing an attack against Black Widow, so she is not going to get to trigger her preparations, so just more ways to push damage onto her. I really like Into the Fray against Black Widow. It's a 3-cost event from Wasp and Galaxy's Most Wanted. Hero action attack deals 6 damage to a minion. For each point of excess damage dealt by this attack, remove 1 threat from the main scheme. Generally, the theme of these 2 cards is like defeat a minion, because we know there's going to be a lot, and make progress on our goals, which is empty main scheme and deal damage to Black Widow. And then I like Marked from Cyclops' kit. It's a 0-cost upgrade. You attach it to a minion. Attacks against the attached minion get overkill. So if you're taking a Spider-Man in here and you want to use that swinging web kick, you can whittle a minion down to 1, throw a Marked on it, and then get 7 damage from your web kick into Black Widow without even worrying about a preparation coming out. Let's move on to Leadership and Protection. So for Leadership, I have Hawkeye, Kate Bishop. It's a 2-cost L. I can't have a video without a Hawkeye, right? Thwart 2 attack character with 2 health, Avenger traded, but here we're mainly using her for action, exhaust this ally and discard 1 card from your hand. Deal X damage to an enemy where X is the number of printed resources on that card. So again, non-attack damage going into Black Widow. Squared Off I really like. It's a hero action. Discard cards from the encounter deck until you discard a minion. Put that minion into play, engage with you. A lot of these minions have when revealed effects, so we get to ignore those when revealed effects and dump allies onto the board, which seems really powerful for us. And then I like Last Stand, right? If we're going to perform an attack with an ally, we think it's going to get knocked out anyway, let's make that attack a really big attack so we're triggering Black Widow's ability as little as possible. So Last Stand is a 0-cost event from the Scarlet Witch pack. Hero Interrupt, when an ally you control attacks, it gets +3 attack. After that attack resolves, discard that ally. Next, let's go through Protection. So Energy Barrier from Miss Marvel and the Spider hero pack. It's a 2-cost upgrade with 3 uses. For reflection counters, it is item and tech traded. Interrupt, when you would take any amount of damage, remove 1 reflection counter from here, prevent 1 of that damage, and deal 1 damage to an enemy. So again, we can take all those pings Black Widow's throwing them at us and turn them into non-attack damage at Black Widow. If you have an aerial character, I really like Ever Vigilant. It is a 2-cost event. Play only if your identity has the aerial trait from the Angel and Star-Lord hero pack. Hero action, ready your hero and remove 2 threat from the main scheme. So you're going to ready Spectrum, clear the main scheme, and then have Spectrum swing for 3 damage into Black Widow's face. Exactly what we want to do. Take care of the scheme, get our characters ready for attacking. Likewise, I think What Doesn't Kill Me from Sinister Motives is really good. It has a requirement that you need to spend a physical resource on this 2-cost event, but it is a hero action, heal 2 damage from your hero to ready your hero. This is going to let us perform multiple attacks in a round. It lets us thwart, ready our hero from the attack we just soaked, and then turn that into damage. So things that are letting us take care of the scheme and perform an attack, very, very important against Black Widow. All right, so the recommended mods by FFG on the card, we have AIM Abduction. So that has 2 copies of AIM Abductor, 2 copies of NAB, and 1 copy of Abduct Superhumans. So let's read Abduct Superhumans first. It is a side scheme that has 2 threat per player and surges because it doesn't do anything right away. It has a forced interrupt. When an ally leaves play, you tuck that ally under this side scheme and place threat here equal to its cost. Then place an acceleration token on the side scheme. So as allies are defeated, you could have several of them under this Abduct Superhuman scheme with lots of acceleration tokens on it. But then when defeated, you put each ally here into play under its owner's control. So all those allies are going to come back at full health. They're going to be jamming and ready to go. So it can be a really fun way to use a Mockingbird and then get her back so that you can stun multiple times. So how do we get allies under there? Because we could just choose to not use our allies. Well, we have the AIM Abductor and nabbed Treachery card. So AIM Abductor is a minion, 1 scheme, 2 attack, 4 health with the AIM trait. When revealed, tuck the ally you control with the most remaining hit points under Abduct Superhumans. Otherwise, place 2 threat on Abduct Superhumans. If Abduct Superhumans is not in play, find it and put it into play. So you'll put it into play if it wasn't in play. And then we have nabbed. If Abduct Superhumans is not in play, find it and put it into play. Discard cards from the top of your deck until an ally is discarded and tuck it under Abduct Superhumans. Place threat equal to that ally's cost and 1 acceleration token on Abduct Superhumans. So lots of different ways for allies to get under that side scheme and just a fun side scheme to interact with. We also have AIM Science, which has 3 AIM soldiers, 1 scheme, 2 attack, 3 health minions with patrol. When revealed, find AIM Scientist and put it into play engaged with you. If AIM Scientist did not enter play, place 1 threat in the main scheme. So a little bit of threat pressure going on here. And then we have a 1 of AIM Scientist, so he has these 3 soldiers sort of guarding him. He's a 0 scheme, 0 attack, 2 health minion with Surge and Vulnerable. So Vulnerable is a new keyword. Discard this card if the character is stunned or confused. While the engaged player is engaged with another minion, AIM Scientists cannot be attacked. They can take, again, non-attack damage, a thing we like in the Black Widow scenario. Finally, we have a 1-of side scheme, Mad Science. It is a 2-threat, 2 hinder per player side scheme, so 4 to 10 threat, where each AIM minion gains an acceleration token, and it has an acceleration icon itself. So if we had all 3 of these cards out, what would that be? 3 acceleration icons. If we were in Expert Stage 3 Black Widow, that would be 6 threat going on to the main scheme at the start of the villain phase, on a scheme that kills you at 10. That's rough. That is bad. Okay. My recommended mods for a thematic hard time. So if you want a difficult challenge, but you want some theme mods, some AIM Hydra mods, I recommend Legions of Hydra from the core set. That's going to put a bunch of minions in the deck that deal you extra encounter cards. That's going to get to more of those extra activations and really buck up your plans. Guard minions also mean that you don't exactly get to choose when you attack Black Widow. You have to deal with these guard minions first. So it can really damage your ability to have player agency deciding I'm going to use this big attack on Black Widow. Likewise, Hydra Patrol has those cards in it, and it has Insight minions, so more threat pressure to give her a little bit more threat pressure for her one main scheme stack. I think Weapon Master is a really fun set to put in here. Well, a really hard set to put in here because it comes with 2 more extra activation cards. Black Widow's Gauntlets are weapons, so those cards are going to surge a lot because you're going to have a ton of weapons in the deck, and it can just be a real nasty time to have 11 extra activations instead of 9. And then Pale Little Spider was a Black Widow modular set that came in this box. It was meant for the Thunderbolt scenario, but it has a ton of things that attach to Black Widow or the villain, that force Black Widow to do something, that make Black Widow activate, and that can be really fun and a unique way to mix it into her deck. For a thematic easier time, you can always use Bomb Scare, right? That's the standard, this villain's too hard, I'm going to put Bomb Scare mode on. It adds a little bit of pressure, but there's a ton of player agency in it where you get to decide between damage and a threat. And it gives you that little miniature side scheme puzzle. Another one is Hydra Assault, which is just a more aggressive version of Hydra Patrol from the Rise of the Red Skull box. So again, a lot of these are more Hydra themed because we haven't had a ton of AIM themed scenarios or encounters other than Doomsday Chair, which I held off on for now. But super fun mods in the mod selection for you to pick from to make a fun thematic game night. All right, let's look at the boost icons. So with the recommended modular sets, here I have a table that says how many cards have 0, 1, 2, or 3 boost icons. So in Black Widow's kit, she has 2 0 icon, 4 1 icon, 9 2 icon, and 4 3 icon cards. The standard set has 4 0 icon, 2 1 icon, 1 2 icon, and 0 3s. AIM Science is 1 3 0 1, and AIM Abduction is 0 2 3 0. That's a really fun table for me to read to you if you're listening to this in audio. But basically, total, if you take all those things and add them up, you're going to have 7 cards in the deck that have 0 boost icons, 11 cards that have 1, 13 cards that have 2, and 5 cards that have 3 boost icons. So if we compare this to Rhino from the core set, right, the first villain you ever foughted, he had 9 0 icon cards, so more zeros. He had exactly 11 1s, so the same as Black Widow, and he had 10 2s, so less than Black Widow, and he has 0 3s. So you had to choose to put 3 icon cards into Rhino's deck. So if we add all of those up and average them by the number of cards in the deck, Black Widow's setup has an average boost icon count of 1.44, so about 1.5 boost icons per card, whereas Rhino has 1.034, so about 1 boost icon per card. So overall, a lot higher boost icon count than anything we've seen from Rhino, and not a ton of boost abilities. I think that's mainly because there were a ton of preparations, so there's not a lot of room on the card to have extra boost abilities. But in general, it was because not enough room on the card, and the scenario is hard enough for an introduction scenario already. All right, so let's look at the encounter card types. So what should we expect to see out of the deck? So we have, there's a typo here. There's supposed to be 4 minion cards in Black Widow's kit, 4 treachery cards, 5 attachment cards, and 2 side schemes. That's going to add up to 10 minions. 13 treacheries, 5 attachments, and 4 side schemes when you add all those modular sets. So the heaviest thing by far is treachery, but minion is right up there with it. So be prepared for minions. Don't act like this is just a solo one-on-one match with Black Widow. I like to classify things into damage, control, and threat as well. So damage I see as like cards that present us with extra damage that we want to take. Control I see as cards that control how we want to play, whether it's a guard minion or a stunned or a confused or something like that. And threat is things that place threat onto the main scheme, whether through insight or scheming or giving Black Widow +1 scheme. Now, don't get me wrong, some cards fit into multiple categories and I've double counted them, but overall about 13 of the cards in the deck are cards that provide extra damage. Yes, there's minions that could damage you, but the goal of the minion is to be like a roadblock and for you to take care of it right away, not for it to sit out there and provide extra damage. There's 17 cards that want to control how you're playing, either by being a minion and getting in your way, by being an acceleration icon that you want to remove, or a crisis icon, or an amplify icon. And there's 17 cards that try to provide threat pressure. So overall, a pretty evenly balanced scenario. If we looked at something like Rhino, it was something like 23-2 or something like that. So this is a pretty balanced scenario between damage, control, and threat. All right, let's get on to our ratings for this box/scenario. That's what that's supposed to say. So our archery scale, again, we have our Goldilocks difficulty. I want the scenario to be difficult and appropriate for its place in the box, but not too difficult, but also not too easy. I want it to be that Goldilocks difficulty. I want to have interesting decision making for me as the player on how to interact with the scenario. I want it to feel unique and like a scenario that's like no other. I want it to be super thematic and super fun. All right, so this scenario got a 3 from me in Goldilocks difficulty. It can be a challenging scenario if you allow it to be. But I feel like it is not too difficult of a scenario and maybe a little bit too much on the easy end, especially if not evaluating this in solo. In solo, the difficulty is definitely there, just like all one level main scheme scenarios are. But for me, it was just a little bit too weak to be a 4 or a 5, a little bit too on the light end of the Goldilocks difficulty. For decision making, we got a straight up 5. I think that's a really good strength in this box, is there's a ton of player agency in every scenario. And they're not fake player decisions where, right, like if you make one decision, you're making the bad decision. They're press your luck decisions and like use your intelligence decisions. So should I be clearing the main scheme? I should be, but is it right now for me to poke Black Widow because it sets up a win next turn? And it's a very interesting decision of, like, we walk into this room with Black Widow, there's 30 buttons to press, and I can only press 5 of them. So am I picking the right 5 buttons? Part of that's going to be luck of the encounter deck. Part of that is going to be you making intelligent decision making. I love it. Perfect for decision making. Uniqueness, I gave it a 4. At the end of the day, this is just a one scheme, could scheme out scenario. Black Widow likely isn't going to defeat you unless you're making egregious mistakes. But the uniqueness is there. I like the foiling of Black Widow. They did that with Nebula too, with Nebula Hero and the Nebula Villain. This is kind of the inverse of that, and I found that to be very fun. That probably spills into thematics, where we get a gold shiny 5 out of 5. Super thematic scenario. I love the idea of Black Widow being prepared for your attacks and sort of like stinging you back each time you perform an attack. Fun factor for me, this is a 5 out of 5, easy slam dunk. I typically love opening scenarios in every box, like thinking through them. I feel like FFG is really good at designing a straightforward opening scenario, adding just enough difficulty to be different than the other opening scenarios, but enough to be something that the players should be prepared for and familiar with. So overall, this got a 22. We're going to divide that by 5 to get its 5-star rating. And again, we can't not have units. So the Black Widow scenario got 4.2 out of 5 preparation. All right, so my final thoughts. I love this scenario. Our group calls this the SCAR scenario because for some reason we all get be prepared stuck in our head. This is likely, I'm going to say this is the best opening scenario of all the campaign boxes we've gotten so far. It's better than Drang. It's better than Crossbones. That hurts me to say. It's certainly better than some of the other scenarios. It's up there with Sandman. Way better than Sabretooth. It is a super fun scenario and super interesting for being such like a basic mix of components, right? It's got a really interesting hook, and it's not overly complex, just like an opening scenario should be. And the most important thing to me, it has amazingly interesting decision making. So I want to know, what do you think about the Black Widow scenario? Do you have any tips and tricks for new players or people that are struggling with the scenario? Sound off in the comments below. Right after we publish this, I will publish my gameplay video of She-Hulk Justice versus Black Widow. So you'll get to see how I did with a Shield She-Hulk build against the Black Widow. And we will be back next week with the next scenario from the campaign box. So until then, hope you all have a great time thwarting Black Widow this week, and we will see you next week.